Welcome back to a 33-year-old boomer hiding his double chin with his hoodie. How replacing developers with AI is going horribly wrong. Let's have a watch.
In 2023, it was predicted that AI would replace up to 80% of developers by 2025.
We're just 6 months away, bro. 6 months away from software developers becoming redundant.
In the future, we'll have AI coworkers. Those people won't even, they're not even people. They wouldn't be able to be embodied.
But this is what is actually happening. Tech companies are now hiring more developers than ever before.
See, I find that to be a very interesting claim because I haven't checked the markets in a couple of weeks, but I don't believe that. Is that true? It's not true in the UK. It's not true in Europe. It's not true in the US. Maybe they mean globally. That is possible. Maybe if you include India and a bunch of other countries, maybe it's true. But I just adjusting the hair. I just don't see that happening in the West unless something's changed dramatically in the past 2 weeks.
This shift is not due to AI failing. Instead, it reflects companies recognizing that its capabilities were likely overestimated.
Tech giants like Meta and Google.
Well, yeah, it's just not... I've spoken about this before quite at length. This is non-technical executives making decisions without having the proper information, perhaps being influenced by greed as well. They look at this... You have a bunch of charlatans selling them this dream of, oh, bro, you're gonna be able to fire everyone, all these pesky meatbags and their work-life balance and holidays. You can just hire our AI. Never mind that at that point you're basically just renting your business from the AI. I've made a video, was it here, I think? Talking about this, about how Salesforce regrets firing 4,000 people. And you're ignoring the fact that if you replace all your staff with AI, at that point you're just renting your company from the AI company. Meanwhile, they're likely going to try and copy your business and do it for cheaper because they have all your customer data and all your secrets. And then they'll just drive you out of business by charging less than they're charging you for the service. So
Now say they're planning to have AI do as much as half of all of their coding.
Companies that previously...
How do you even measure that? Like if you're in VS Code, right? You're typing away, you've got Copilot helping you. And let's say the Copilot suggests a function that you're about to write based on the context of everything that you've written around it. If you accept that, did the AI write the code? Because you still have to know what you're accepting. The AI by itself would not be able to fully do everything properly because it doesn't understand what's happening. It's statistically suggesting a function that it thinks you're trying to write. What if the function is 70% accurate and you go, do you know what, close enough, I'm going to accept it and then I'm going to change a couple of things. Did AI write that code? What percent of that code was written by AI? Just because the AI wrote 70 to 80% of the letters and the syntax, does that mean that the AI wrote the code? Difficult to tell.
laid off software developers en masse now appear to be reversing those decisions. Many of these so-called miraculous...
Again, I'm not seeing this in the West, maybe globally, but I'm not seeing it in the West.
AI tools do not compare to the problem-solving abilities of a human.
Looks like companies are laying off the...
Yep, AI doesn't understand, or LLMs don't understand what they're actually doing. They can't solve problems. And the closer you are to the avant-garde, the closer you are to the edge, to the wild west of whatever technology you're working on, AI is less and less useless, or is less and less useful, because it doesn't have any data as to what you're doing.
Layoffs. Businesses planned around 32,000 layoffs in September. That's down 27% from the same time last year.
This has put AI's ability to write code into question. So, how replacing developers with AI went wrong? In recent years, a narrative has taken hold that artificial intelligence would be ready to replace human programmers. From investors to chief executives, the idea that most software...
Well, if you can replace software developers, you can replace everyone. because of course software developers have been automating various industries for a very long time. So if you can automate the automators and you can just generate crazy amounts of code instantly, pretty much, then you've now replaced everyone.
Code would be written by machines by the middle of this decade was repeatedly reinforced.
The company says more than a quarter of all new code at Google is now generated by AI.
Again, how do you measure this? And also, I do wonder, people meme this a lot, but I do wonder how much of this vibe coding or AI coding is responsible for software just being more and more broken. I mean, recently the Microsoft update that made Notepad unavailable for many people, the start button wouldn't work. I mean, incredible. How does this even happen? And perhaps it's a combination of failure of leadership, as the Primogen has said. But I do wonder how much of this is just engineers being pressured to use AI more and more, engineers having their colleagues fired, and them told, hey, you have to use more AI, use more AI. I mean, I can't even imagine how massive the code base for Windows 11 must be. And if you have all this pressure to produce a bunch of code with more and more AI, perhaps this is what it leads to. You'd have to wonder how did that even pass testing? Like how can you be in a situation where the start button doesn't work and you don't notice as a company?
Some projections went as far as claiming that up to 80% of software development could be automated before 2026. However, the empirical evidence accumulated throughout 2024 and 2025 shows a very different reality. The initial enthusiasm for tools such as GitHub Copilot and specialized AI language models pushed many organizations toward full automation of programming. As a result, in some cases, more than 30% of
I don't know. What does that mean to have 100% automation of programming? Surely you have to have at least like some technical people involved. You can't just hand off all of your programming to the AI. You're going to go bankrupt. What are you talking about? Okay.
Innovation technology budgets were allocated to these solutions. But when these tools began to be used in real production environments, rather than controlled demonstrations, significant problems emerged. Among them were losses in productivity and an increase in error rates.
We're not saying here that AI isn't leading to be productive. We're just saying that AI tools, yes, they're here and they're being used. The payoff may be more uneven than the hype suggests.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people even consider productivity at this point. Because I guess it just heavily depends on context. I suppose that is a huge factor. But I personally just don't find it that productive. I've played with it since it came out. I've experimented with all sorts of AI stuff. The most often use that I have for AI is to occasionally ask it a question that I think is too specific to Google, or it will just take too long to Google. And it's useful for that. However, I don't know, I don't understand what kind of business-orientated scenario you could possibly use it in where you could even trust the output. Because I can't give details, but I've been in situations where people had emails rewritten by AI, and then it turned out that there were errors in the AI summarization, AI rewriting, and that can cause severe problems. I do wonder how much wasted time this is causing, because what companies are doing, or managers or employees are doing, is they're writing bullet points into ChatGPT. That generates an email. They then send that email, often without even reading it. Then the people on the other end summarize the email back into bullet points, and there is so much room for error, it's incredible, where you could just send bullet points to begin with. This is ridiculous. And I wonder how many errors are occurring as a result of this happening. What is the error rate of people using this this game of is it Chinese telephone? Is that what it's called? To send and receive emails or Slack messages.
Security vulnerabilities also appeared, and in some cases, financial collapses occurred in companies that presented AI-driven development as fully autonomous. For example, an academic study published in 2025 analyzed more than 500,000 code samples generated by human developers and by AI systems. The analysis focused on widely used languages such.
So obviously humans also produce vulnerable code. Vulnerable code isn't entirely the realm of AI. The problem occurs when you don't give your engineers the time they need to think the code through. So whether they write it themselves or whether it's AI generated, the engineers still need the time to understand how everything works, to think about contingencies and about edge cases that aren't immediately obvious. And if you do this, if you give them enough time to do that, the AI coding becomes superfluous, it becomes irrelevant, because the writing of the code itself is a tiny fraction of the time that you would spend thinking about designing and testing these systems. The writing of the code is never the bit that takes the longest. And this is what I think a lot of executives are frustrated about, because this technology was presented to them as a panacea against all their financial woes. And it turns out that it's just not particularly useful, especially if you have a team of capable engineers. And if you don't have a team of capable engineers and you're just hiring vibe coders, well, then you're going to get sued every time there's a massive data breach. You're going to have a lot more, because no one understands. Because even though humans can write terrible code, at least when there's humans that are doing it, there's some semblance of, hey, let's build something solid. But when it's just AI, it doesn't have that motivation. It just copies code from other people, and it builds you something that can never be truly solid. That can never be safe. Plus, if you stop hiring real developers, real engineers, and you just hire amateurs who vibe code all day, you're going to destroy the pipeline of talent. Because, of course, someone who's a senior engineer today was a newbie at some point in the past. And it just seems like all these companies are so reluctant to hire newbies. They're hoping that other companies will hire them, and then they get to hire the mid-level and the senior engineers. But man, it's the hiring market is terrible right now, as you well know. I haven't had a look at it in a couple of weeks, but it's very bleak. Let's just put it that way.
Just Python, Java, and JavaScript. And the results were consistent. AI-generated code tends to be simpler, more repetitive, and less structurally diverse.
Well, what they mean by repetitive here, and this is a huge problem with AI code, is that it doesn't, because it doesn't understand what's happening, it has a tendency to repeat itself, which is a huge problem with code, because code by its nature, especially in enterprise solutions or enterprise contexts, code is executed hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of times. And so what would appear to be a minor inefficiency becomes a huge amount of waste, which translates into cost later on. I mean, a perfect example of this for any newbie that's watching this that doesn't understand anything about, or any person that's not really into computers, here's a perfect example. Let's say that you had to measure a desk to build something out of wood, and you had to measure the desk to make another desk. A sensible person who's making a desk would measure the desk that they have, and then they would write down the measurements of this desk, width, length, depth, etc. When writing code, you would do, as a human, you would do something similar. You would do something once, and then you would store that information for future reference. And this is very efficient. However, AI doesn't understand that you already have that reference stored somewhere else. At least it doesn't understand that in a complex enough context. And so what AI will do is when making another desk, it will remeasure the previous desk over and over. It will remeasure it 1 billion times because it doesn't understand the full context of what's happening. And this is how AI code can be very inefficient and very repetitive.
These characteristics result in software that is less robust and more difficult to maintain over the long term. Although these
Yeah, because of course, the very process of remeasuring something all the time generates more code. It means more instructions. It means literally more code to deal with, which is not only inefficient to run, but it becomes a nightmare to maintain.
Modifications may appear harmless, the direct consequence is a significant increase in risk. The same study found that code produced by AI contains between 20 and 45% more high-risk security vulnerabilities. These include input validation failures, improper error handling, and poor cryptographic practices.
But the big picture here is that enterprise AI spend, it's not lining.
Yeah, I've seen cases where people were developing software where the AI would just store passwords in plain text, which, if you don't know anything about programming, that's a terrible idea. The way that you would normally store passwords is in an encrypted form, where even if you got typically they're encrypted plus they're salted, which means that even if you got a hold of the database that contains all the passwords, you can't do anything with them. And because they're salted, you can't, even if you have two identical passwords because they have different salt, the cryptographic version or the hash also looks different from the other identical password, which is a very secure way to store that kind of information. But often AI doesn't even try to do that unless you specifically tell it to, hey, make sure you store the passwords securely. And then it goes, oh yeah, of course, that's a good idea.
Up with the early narrative.
In contrast, human-written code reflects more well-grounded decisions and a better understanding of system requirements, reducing the likelihood of critical failures in production. Automated solutions, by comparison, exhibit up to 1.7 times more severe or critical errors. These findings align with industry analyses. A report by CodeRabbit revealed that AI-generated pull requests contain an average of 10.8 detected issues, compared with 6.4 in those written by humans. This difference is not trivial. Each additional error increases review, maintenance, and correction.
I mean, a single error can cause a company to lose billions. Let's just put it that way. When you say, oh, it's instead of 6.8 or whatever, it's only 10.4 or whatever the numbers were. Yeah, a single error, a single critical error can just take down an entire company. You can't play around with these things.
Costs in later stages of development. One of the main arguments in favor of AI is increased productivity and
what they mean is paying less people. What they mean is hiring fewer people and the shareholders keep more money. That's what that means.
Simple and repetitive tasks, this promise is partially fulfilled. Studies show that junior developers can increase their delivery.
Look, simple and repetitive tasks, these things have been automated for a long time. Computers already address a lot of simple and repetitive tasks. This is something else. This goes into a territory where there's an amount of risk that the executives simply don't understand.
Speed by around 30 to 35% when using AI assistants.
Right, but what does that mean? What does that? People are so baffled by statistics. Wow, a 30% increase. How do you measure that? What is the lifespan of that code? How quickly is someone who actually knows what they're doing, how quickly are they going to have to jump in and fix that? How much is the junior developer learning by automating all of this? Is this going to damage their career in the future? which in turn might damage companies as well, because you're just not going to be able to find decent mid-level engineers if none of the junior engineers learn anything.
To generate basic code or templates. However, when productivity is examined in real enterprise contexts, the picture changes radically.
Seasoned engineers were actually 19% slower when using AI tools.
Yeah, of course. Isn't this incredible that you have executives who are non-technical, they don't know anything about computers, and yet they're trying to tell their engineers how to do their job. Hey, use this AI, it's going to make you faster. And then your engineers are telling you that it's making them slower, and you don't believe them because the charlatan that sold you on the AI told you that they're lying because they're afraid for their jobs. Incredible.
Like Cursor. Instead of speeding these engineers up, the AI often gave them suggestions that looked helpful, but actually required time-consuming corrections.
Academic research and corporate reports indicate that more than 90% of AI-assisted development pilot projects fail to integrate stably or generate a clear return on investment. Some reasons include security issues, incompatibility with existing architectures, and the constant need for human intervention.
Right, I mean, in some contexts, they don't really care. So, for example, the reason why they're trying to automate customer service is because they're not trying to solve the problem. They're trying to annoy the customers to the point where they go away. And so the fact that chatbots don't really work is a feature, not a bug. They don't work. The product is terrible anyway that they're selling. You then try and contact them to complain about the product. And then, well, you have to talk to a chatbot. And the chatbot can't help you. You end up in a loop. And what they wish happens is that you get frustrated and then you leave. And this is a problem if only one company does this. But if all of them have this terrible customer service, you just have to deal with it. What can you do?
In the case of experienced developers, several studies even show a net reduction in productivity. Senior engineers report spending between 8 and 11 additional hours per week reviewing, correcting, or rewriting AI-generated code. This effort is concentrated especially in complex systems, where contextual errors can generate cascading effects. But the most critical problem associated with AI-generated code is security. According to VeraCode's Code Security Report, approximately 45% of AI-generated code contains vulnerabilities classified as critical.
And again, humans can do this too. Critical vulnerabilities aren't entirely the realm of computers and of AI. But the difference is that this is what happens when you force engineers to generate a bunch of code. Greed is fundamentally the problem here. You have all these companies hoping that they don't have to pay the engineers and they can just have this magic box generate all the code for them. And this is gonna cause some absolute disasters in the future. I hope I'm wrong, but I've spoken about this before as well.
In languages widely used in enterprise environments, failure rates exceed 70%, while in Python and JavaScript they range between 38 and 45%.
Tech giants like Microsoft and Google are outsourcing more and more coding to AI in a productivity push, but some new research shows the tools might not be as helpful as some expect.
But these vulnerabilities are not merely theoretical. Surveys cited by Reuters indicate that 1 in 5 security leaders reported real production incidents caused directly by AI-generated code. In some cases, organizations were
The number is only going to go up if they continue down this path.
forced to roll back entire deployments or apply emergency patches, with significant economic and reputational costs. But the problems are not limited to abstract statistics. There are concrete examples of companies that aggressively bet on AI-driven development automation and faced serious consequences. One of the most emblematic cases is Builder AI, a company that promised to create complete applications using artificial intelligence with minimal human intervention. Despite having raised hundreds of millions of dollars and achieving a multi-billion-dollar valuation, it was discovered that much of the work still depended on human developers.
By now, you've probably heard about Builder AI, that AI startup valued at $1.5 billion that just filed for bankruptcy, and you might even know the story about how this supposed AI company wasn't really using AI at all, just 700 Indian engineers doing the actual work.
In 2025, the company filed for bankruptcy and reduced its workforce by approximately 80%, affecting nearly 1,000 employees. Another concerning case occurred in December 2025, when a developer reported a critical failure in an AI-assisted development tool with deep access to the operating system. Google Anti-Gravity AI accidentally deleted all of the contents of an entire disk drive after executing an incorrect command with a silencing flag. This incident highlighted the risks of delegating critical automations without human oversight, where a single failure.
Yeah, who's responsible in that context, right? If you have an AI agent doing stuff, who's responsible?
can result in irreversible data loss and weeks or months of work gone. Beyond isolated errors, there is a growing technical consensus regarding the limitations of current AI models. In particular, its inability to make complex engineering decisions that require broad context and human judgment is emphasized. Automated tools perform well in clearly defined and highly structured tasks. However, they fail when interacting with interdependent architectures, legacy systems, and ambiguous business requirements, a common reality in most enterprise projects.
Prior studies from Meter have shown a more straightforward benefit to junior engineers from AI tools, particularly for simpler, well-scoped tasks. Now, this latest suggests that while it can help that group level up, it may actually be increasing reliance on senior talent.
Level up how? You never learn anything. How are you leveling? Leveling up and learning involves you having to think about problems and then solving them. If the Gyppies are solving your problem, what are you learning? How are you leveling up exactly? This is like saying that, hey, you don't have to play basketball. You can just watch other people play basketball, and you're going to become a better basketball player as a result. Complete nonsense.
Because someone still needs to debug, refine, and ship the final product.
One of the most recurrent reasons for these failures is AI's inability to handle incomplete or implicit requirements. Unlike human developers who ask questions and anticipate edge cases, AI relies strictly on the information provided. This is problematic considering that more than 70% of enterprise software projects experience significant requirement changes during development. In real-world applications, a seemingly simple function such as processing payments can hide substantial complexity. In practice, it often involves dozens of business rules related to refunds, taxes, and regulatory compliance. AI cannot anticipate these complexities unless they are explicitly specified. This explains why a large proportion of automated projects end up...
Even then, if you give it too much context, they will make mistakes still. Humans are aware of these legislations and rules, and they can write code with that in mind. With the AI, as I said, it can't do that. And also, even if you tell it all the rules, there's too much context. It's gonna miss things. You're gonna say, hey, you forgot this legislation. Oh, sorry, you're right. Let me just rewrite the code. And then it rewrites it, and it's either identical to the previous code, it either includes the new rule but forgets another one, or it just adds the rule and then adds some non-existent rule. It's very difficult to get it to do exactly what you want. And the more complicated the project, the wider the scope, the more likely it is that it will do that.
Being partially rewritten by human developers before release. This is compounded by the fact that, despite the AI hype promoted by tech companies, most artificial intelligence tools are, in general, very similar to one another.
We talked about that race between these models.
Like summarizing emails, is that really that useful? I've never summarized an email. I just read the email. I don't understand what the point of that is.
They do video or image generation. Some are better at coding than others or writing than others. They all improve though, but they all generally do the same thing.
Cases of companies that suffered multi-million-dollar losses.
That's also because a lot of these services use the same models behind the scenes. Many companies they use to generate images or video or text or whatever, they're just wrappers. They're just wrappers around the main models, which is why you can use two different services and they produce the exact same output, pretty much. It's because they use the same. They're acting as middlemen between you and some larger service.
Or even bankruptcies, after blindly betting on these solutions, serve as a clear warning. The real transformation does not lie in eliminating developers, but in enhancing their work through intelligent tools that reduce repetitive tasks. At the same time, human judgment, experience, and accountability.
The problem with doing that is that you can reach a point like right now where it seems financially nonsensical to hire juniors. Because juniors do a lot of very simple, a lot of very repetitive things. And if you can end up in a situation where it's no longer financially feasible or logical to hire juniors, and then you end up in a situation where you break the talent pipe, and then you end up in a situation where you break the talent pipeline, because no one wants to shoulder the cost of training the juniors when the LLM can do a lot of repetitive things. And so whether AI advances and gets better or stays where it is, you're still going to end up in a situation where you're going to have a crisis where there's just not enough developers, experienced developers, because you stopped hiring the juniors to begin with.
Are preserved in every line of code.
So yeah, in conclusion, things are bad, I guess. I don't know. The AI bubble might be popping soon. I'm definitely seeing an increase in videos talking about it. I've spoken about it before in the past, but people are talking about it more and more. No one knows what's going to happen. I think it's becoming clear that a lot of companies are waking up to the reality that AI isn't what they've been told it is. It's a tool that can be useful in some situations, but the moment you have any really meaningful tasks for it to do, the moment you use it for anything more than a faster Google search, that's when you start running into trouble. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.